What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. Now, I appreciate you making me a part of your day again. I'm truly blessed to be back, and we got a lot we're going to discuss today, and a lot of it is going to be a giant rant from me early on because of the NBA season that's unfolding right before our eyes, at least the NBA playoffs that's unfolding right now. Well, last week, I discussed a little bit about the Lakers issues, and we're going to discuss a little bit more about the Lakers issues today. And the fact of the matter is, more crap keeps popping up with the Lakers, and I know the reason why it keeps happening, why the Lakers are such a shit show. I'm really trying to cut back on my cursing. It's a struggle, especially when you grow up with people who all they do is curse all the time. It's a fun time. But either way, we're going to be talking about the NBA today and a little bit of my NFL predictions now that the draft is over and now that free agency is passed. Now we know the rosters pretty much inside and out. I'll be giving my predictions as to who's going to be winning the division this year. Not necessarily making playoff predictions just yet, just because I need to see more. The Hall of Fame game is only a couple months away, so I'll probably make another video later. It's obviously months from now. That's when I'll really dive deep and make my predictions for the NFL season. At least, I might even do something new this year. I know Colin Cowherd on his show likes to do a Blazing 5. I might do something like that. So stay tuned for that in the next couple months. Whereas, right now it's all NBA talk. And we're going to be talking slight NFL a little bit. Might be a little bit of a shorter episode today after the rants I'm about to go on. But like as always, ladies and gentlemen, Bucked Up Ambassador. So use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout and gym gear orders you may have at buckedup.com. Use promo code SHOW32. All right. So I was on a roll there, guys. I really was. So let's talk about, right now, as it stands, we got the NBA quarterfinals in the playoffs. So we have the Thunder, the first-seeded Thunder, going up against the fifth-seeded Mavericks. We have the third-seeded Timberwolves, who just beat the second-seeded Nuggets in Game 1, 108-106. So that's the West right now. And in the East, we got the first-seeded Celtics against the fourth-seeded Cavs, who just closed out business against the Magic recently. And we got the sixth-seeded Pacers after beating the Bucks, going up against the second-seeded Knicks. Feels like a pipe dream that the Knicks are actually good at something, that a New York team in general is actually good at something. I swear, it's been forever since New York had a team to root for that actually didn't stink. Sorry, Giants and Jets fans, and sorry to Knicks fans for a long time at least, and sorry to Brooklyn fans. The fact of the matter is that you guys had Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, Blake Griffin, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. Yeah, you guys didn't really amount to much, did you? So that's where we are right now in the NBA playoffs. So I personally think that the Mavericks are going to beat the Thunder. I just think Luka and Kyrie are going to be too much for the Thunder. The Thunder, don't get me wrong, I think they'll give the Mavericks everything they got in this series. This might go 6 or 7, in my opinion. So I do think the Mavericks win, though. I think the Thunder are just too inexperienced right now. They're a very young team. They are on the rise, so the Thunder will be good within the next couple of years. Like, they'll be making runs for the championship real soon, but I believe they're too young right now to make any sort of championship impact. So, but, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's a dog. So I think the Thunder are going to be okay in the future, but right now I don't think they'll be able to keep up with Luka and Kyrie and the Mavericks. And the Timberwolves against the Nuggets, well, I think the Timberwolves match up pretty well with Denver, as we saw in Game 1. Anthony Edwards is just so damn good. Anthony Edwards is just so damn good. And I think the Timberwolves really match up well with Denver. I think they're going to give the reigning NBA champions all they got. I do think this is a 7-game series, so I'm going to take the Timberwolves to win it all, to win this series at least in 7 games. Boston and Cleveland, another matchup that I'm really looking forward to see. as much as I want to root for Cleveland, as much as I would love to see Cleveland win it all, and as much as I would love to see Boston choke yet again in the playoffs, I think the Cavs team is still too young. I know they have Donovan Mitchell, but I really don't think they could keep up with Jason Tatum and the Celtics. So I'm going to take the Celtics probably to win this series in 5, maybe 6, but I think it'll be a five game series. And then we got the Pacers against the Knicks. I think the Knicks will win this in 6. The Knicks right now with Jalen Brunson, those Nova boys, they're just, I swear, the Knicks, they're just good. This is just a fun team to watch. Jalen Brunson is a fun player to watch. Even early on against the Sixers, he had a couple stinkers early on in the series, but then he really took over. So I think it's going to be the Knicks and Celtics in the Eastern Conference Championship, and then the Mavericks and the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Championship game. So that's my little NBA predictions to close out the NBA playoffs of 2024. So I think we're in for a real treat when it comes to the ending of this year. I think it's going to be a good one. So let's transition into the team I'm going to really go on a rant about, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. Yet again, making headlines. Now, I know this happened a couple days ago, but honestly, I kind of saw it happening just because the NBA is so player-oriented. It's player-driven, which is, in my opinion, a big problem in the NBA, and one of the biggest problems that the NBA has, especially in recent memory. So the LA Lakers, after 2 seasons, have fired head coach Darvin Ham. This is ridiculous in my opinion. This man, this is his 2nd season. Yeah, the Lakers lost 4-1 in the first round this year against the Nuggets. The reigning NBA champion Nuggets, I might add, with the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, and probably one of the best playoff performers in recent memory, Jamal Murray, and just a stacked starting 5 in general. Not much of a bench like last year, but the Nuggets, reigning champions for a reason. And then last year, the year prior, Darvin Ham got the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals against Denver. Now, I know they got swept last year, but either way, I don't think this is at all Darvin Ham's fault. At what point do we start holding the NBA players accountable for things that go on within the organization and things that go on when it comes to player personnel? And the fact of the matter is, the players run the NBA. We've known this for a while now. There is no reason I can think of that Darvin Ham should have been let go. That Darvin Ham honestly should have been fired after 2 seasons, especially making the Western Conference Championship a year ago. And I know he got bounced in the first round this year, but the Lakers literally went up against the reigning NBA champions who are still trying to keep the crown as the top in the NBA. I don't think that's a reason to fire anyone over. I really don't see the reason for firing Darvin Ham. Do I think his substitution practices were, kind of off? Yeah. Did I think his, rotations and everything, did I think all that was a little off and odd sometimes? Yes. But the fact of the matter is that LeBron James has had his thumb pressed on this organization since he's got here. Since LeBron has got here, it's been turnover after turnover in player personnel. LeBron James has personnel say in every single team he goes to. Now, I'm not going to say it's not warranted because LeBron James, he's one of the best basketball players of all time. He's arguably top 2. I'm not willing to put him above Jordan. I'm just not. I know he's been great for so long, and Jordan wasn't this great for that long in his career. But fact of the matter is, the way LeBron and AD threw Darvin Ham under the bus just rubs me the wrong way. Is it Darvin Ham's fault? The players that he has right now and the personnel that he has? Is it really his fault? When LeBron James is the one who really has his thumb on the organization, bitching and complaining, like, this is who we need to have on the team, this is who we need to get, this is who we need to trade, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. Where does it end when it comes to LeBron and his meddling in the organization? The Westbrook trade from years ago, that was a disaster of a trade for the Lakers. Then we see it with D'Lo. D'Lo ain't that all that. It's proven that D'Lo is one of the most inconsistent players in the NBA right now. We saw it in this past series. He shows up one game and then goes 0 for 11, 0 for 7 from 3 in another game. Inconsistency. And last week I've said this multiple times that for the past better part since the bubble back in COVID, LeBron and AD have carried the Lakers. Even in the NBA bubble, that team was built to win a championship. Those guys, while the younger teams are usually the ones that, can handle it the best and really have the most talent, those veterans, those grizzled old veterans on the Lakers team in 2020, they were just built to win the championship. They were built that way because all those vets that really played on that team, pretty much all of them have been in the championship spotlight. Now, that was unprecedented times, but the Lakers, they let go of all those players for either retirement, just trying to get younger on the depth chart, whatever it may be. Either way, LeBron has had his thumb pressed on this organization when it comes to player personnel and player decisions, and it makes absolutely no sense. Is it Darvin Ham's fault that D'Lo didn't show up, Austin Reeves didn't show up, Hachimura didn't show up, or the Lakers not having any sense of a bench whatsoever and not having any sense of players that actually play good other than AD and LeBron? Back in the day when LeBron was consistently getting to finals it seemed like every year, like 9 straight years, I believe. Either way, back when LeBron was really in his prime, when he can really carry a team on his shoulders, yes, you can meddle with player personnel and make all those changes and trade all these players to appease LeBron because you could afford to do it because you were pretty much guaranteed at least a championship appearance. Maybe not necessarily win it, but you're going to get to the finals back then. But now fast forward all these years, LeBron is on the back 9 of his career, and he can't carry the load like he used to. He's not like peak Miami Heat form. He's not peak Cleveland Cavs form. Even when back in 2020, LeBron was still at his peak game. But now, he's the main problem with the Lakers, in my opinion. He's the main problem. And while I say it's LeBron's fault, the whole Lakers team, like collectively, just isn't that great. I don't think that they're not a championship team. You got LeBron and AD, and then, in my opinion, it is a huge drop-off of their next best player. It's a huge skill gap. D'Lo doesn't compare to a LeBron or an AD quality player. Austin Reeves, he's a 3, maybe. He's an okay 3, maybe a great 4 on a team. Rui Hachimura, he's a good 5 in my opinion. Like, there's no other guy on the Lakers that can reach the potential that a LeBron James can or that an Anthony Davis can. But circling back to it, this is all because of LeBron. LeBron has had his say in player personnel for the longest time, basically since he got to LA. And I think that is the reason the Lakers are going to struggle throughout the next couple of years. Now, when I say struggle, I don't believe they'll win a championship anytime soon again. I really don't. Depending on where LeBron goes, I think if LeBron does get another ring, I don't believe it's going to be with LA. I do believe his contract is up this season, so we'll see how the offseason, really takes place. Obviously, that's a little ways away. But in all honesty, circling back to Darvin Ham, you're firing a guy who made the Western Conference Championship game last year, got bounced in the first round, again by the Nuggets, by the reigning champion. But yeah, all of this is his fault. The fact that Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui Hachimura didn't show up for basically a single damn game in this entire series, yeah, that's Darvin Ham's fault, apparently. The fact that LeBron and AD are both gassed by the fourth quarter, yeah, that's all Darvin Ham's fault, right? It makes absolutely no sense of how much the players have control over all of these teams in the NBA. Other coaches that come to mind when this, like looking at the Darvin Ham situation, Mike Budenholzer, multiple-time coach of the year, former coach of the Bucks, NBA champion, and basically Giannis ran him out of town. For whatever reason, they fired him. I still don't recall the real reason why they fired Budenholzer, but multiple-time coach of the year, an NBA champion, basically has been with the Bucks forever. He was fired, and that made no sense to me. Doc Rivers is another coach who got blamed for a lot. And I'm going to circle to one more head coach that comes to mind who might be fired, and that's Frank Vogel, head coach of the Suns and former coach of the LA Lakers. Are you meaning to tell me if the Suns actually go down this road, you're going to fire Frank Vogel, and apparently this is going to be his fault too? NBA coaches are always the fall guys. Those are always the guys who are going to take the fall if a season doesn't go their way or anything doesn't go their way. If nothing goes according to plan, the coaches are the main fault guys. They take the blame, they take the hit, and a lot of times those guys end up without jobs. Those guys end up fired, looking for new employment. Frank Vogel should not be fired from the Suns. Is it his fault that injuries took place? Is it his fault that the Suns put all their eggs into 3 guys? Is it Frank Vogel's fault that Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal barely played a damn game together? Is it really Frank Vogel's fault? You're going to blame him for everything that happened? I just don't understand that whatsoever. A lot about the NBA pisses me off, and it's a big reason as to why I'm so big on the NFL is because things are constantly changing, and I just think it's a better league overall. They're even taking over Christmas days now. Christmas Day used to be an NBA thing. Not anymore. It's turning into an NFL kind of day now. But it's just the fact that the players in the NBA really run the NBA, whereas in the NFL, it doesn't matter who you are as a player. You're not going to walk over any of those owners, any of those GMs, any of those coaches. It don't matter who you are. You are replaceable. You are replaceable so quick. You could be replaced in the blink of an eye. You could be a superstar one day, rush for 2,000 yards in one season, and then instantly be let go. And NFL teams will bounce back real quick. NBA teams are run a little bit different because the players have the majority of the control. And the fact of the matter is that LeBron and AD basically got Darvin Ham fired. And like I said, doesn't make sense to me. He's been with the Lakers. This was only his second year. Like I said, made the conference championship the year prior. Got swept by the Nuggets, who eventually went on to be NBA champions, and nearly got swept again by the reigning NBA champs again, the Nuggets, who possibly could go on to win back-to-back. How is it Darvin Ham's fault that LeBron has complete control over player personnel and is allowed to make these decisions and dictate these terms? How is it Darvin Ham's fault that Rui, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves can be so inconsistent game in, game out? But yeah, it's Darvin Ham's fault apparently. The fact that the NBA is run by the players is really sickening to me. I really feel bad for Ty Lue, who is the head coach of the Clippers, having to deal with that shit show. Talk about something that drives me insane is the fact that Kawhi Leonard, he basically was the same way, dictating terms and who he wanted. He basically recruited Paul George to come with him to LA. And back then, when that happened, we all looked at Kawhi Leonard as, oh, he was the biggest superstar to go there. Well, no. Paul George has been the one who has been consistently playing, who has been consistently performing, and there for the organization. Kawhi Leonard is quiet. He's very soft-spoken. He doesn't necessarily market your brand well. He's barely available. He's very expensive. Sorry, guys. Heard something fall. But he's very expensive. He's barely there available to play. Why on earth is he able to dictate terms? On the Clippers, honestly, this experiment has failed worse than the Lakers experiment has failed. Now, the Lakers, they got a championship out of it. The Clippers, they will always be the little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers. Moving into a new stadium real soon, their own arena, finally not sharing one with the Lakers. They have no banners to put up whatsoever. They have no hardware to bring with them whatsoever. And are you going to market the same team? Kawhi Leonard, who barely plays. Now, some of it is injury. A lot of it is load management. It goes both ways. Injuries and load management, doesn't matter. Either way, he barely plays. Then you got Paul George, who's been the most consistent superstar to show up for that organization. Russell Westbrook, old, out of his prime. James Harden, old, out of his prime. Nobody's showing up for the Clippers anymore. I don't know where you go if you're the Clippers. Do you re-sign Kawhi Leonard and Paul George? Do you put the same team out for next year? I don't know if you can, because it might just be the same as it was this year. You guys lost to the Mavericks. So, I don't know where you go from here if you're a Clippers fan. There are a lot of NBA teams that really have issues. The one, in my opinion, that has probably some of the biggest issues is the Suns and Milwaukee. Milwaukee, I do believe, is running it back with Damian Lillard and Giannis. Now, if Giannis was healthy and if Dame was healthy for the entire series, I do believe they beat the Pacers convincingly, but it's just the fact that they weren't, so this is the cards that you're dealt with. But the Bucks, they're one of the oldest teams now in the league. You got young, upcoming teams in the East. You got the Knicks are good. Philly's still good, even though that's a completely different story about Joel Embiid in that situation. But the Sixers are still viable. You got the Knicks upcoming. The Pacers are on the come up. You got the Cavs on the come up. And Boston is only going to get even better. Time is closing now for Milwaukee to win another championship with this core, especially being so old. You got Giannis, you got Middleton, and Drew Holiday, and Damian Lillard. That's a solid four, but getting old, getting up there in age, I don't know where you go from there if you're Milwaukee. And then if you're the Suns, you got three big-ass contracts tied up with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. I don't know where you go from there. I think, personally, you trade Kevin Durant, get some sort of value for him, because I think that whole experiment just blew up. Obviously, Bradley Beal, he's a stud. Devin Booker's a stud. KD's still a stud. They're all studs, but they barely played with one another this year. So the experiment failed. It's time to cut your losses and move on. So the Lakers, I think they made a stupid decision firing Darvin Ham. Now, did I agree with all his coaching styles and his rotations and everything and his defensive adjustments? No. I'm not going to say he was the perfect coach. No, nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect coaching. You get shit wrong every now and then. But to fire a man who was in the Western Conference Finals last year and had basically the same team as last year, maybe slightly worse, but statistically did a little bit better than last year. But either way, you fire that man, and basically it's all LeBron James' fault. I don't know where you go from there. And the Bucks with Doc Rivers, you're getting old. That roster's getting old and expensive, and especially in the East where teams are younger, they're up and coming, and they're ready to make their push for NBA championships. So the Bucks window is closing very rapidly. And then you got teams like the Clippers who basically are in purgatory. I don't know what the heck you do with that team in general. I think you personally get rid of Kawhi. You got to get rid of Russell. You got to get rid of Harden. You got to get younger and more talented. As much as I still think those guys are talented, Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi, they're out of their primes. This is not 2012. the years 2012 to the years 2018. That is not that time. They are way past their primes now. Old, brittle, expensive, and just bad. Inconsistent, I should say. Not bad, but very inconsistent. So Clippers, I don't know where they go from there. I personally think the Suns should keep Frank Vogel. I don't think he should be the scapegoat just because the big three barely played together at all this season. So we're about to find out later on down the line and see what happens in the NBA. It's so funny to me that Frank Vogel only lasted with the Lakers for 3 seasons, and Darvin Ham only lasted 2 seasons with the Lakers. I'm pretty sure, let's see, since 2010. Yeah, we'll go 2010. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're going to be on their 8th coach since 2010. How pathetic is that? That's ridiculous. And now, I know for a fact that LeBron wasn't there all these years, but LeBron, every single team he's been to, he's had a say in player personnel. So if I was Cleveland, I don't want LeBron back. I think he would just implode all the progress that team would make. All the progress that Cleveland has been making. They're a viable team. They're young still, but they're very viable. And I think they could really be something in the future, post-LeBron. Cleveland being relevant without LeBron James. Whoever would have saw that coming. But it's true. They are very relevant without LeBron James. So it's just crazy to me of how inconsistent and BS the Lakers have been over the past 10 to 12 years. The fact of the matter is they're going to be on their 8th head coach in 14 years. That's pitiful. I don't know where you go from here if you're the Lakers. I really don't. But as a whole in the NBA, are you really going to continue to make coaches the scapegoat when it's the players' actions that really hinder the team? Coaches coach. Coaches put in schemes. Coaches put in rotations. Coaches put in the overall offensive plays. They do all of this. But it comes up, it's the guys who need to make it happen. I think coaching in the NBA is a little bit different than coaching in the NFL, that's for sure. But is it really the head coach's fault all the time? Are they really supposed to be the fall guys for when when shit hits the fan? Is it really their problem? I don't know. So that's my little NBA rant for the day. It bugs the hell out of me that the Lakers fired Darvin Ham. It just makes zero sense that all these coaches in the NBA are the fall guys when it's really the players' fault. The players put these coaches in these situations. Phoenix, keep Frank Vogel, please. Keep Frank Vogel. Lakers, I know they're going to try and probably poach Ty Lue away from the Clippers. I don't know if that's going to happen, but either way, it's going to be a weird time in LA coming up real soon. I know that for a fact. All right, as we transition, NFL draft is in the books. NFL free agency is in the books. So I'm going to make my predictions for every single division. We're going to start with the AFC. I'm going to make a prediction for who's the order every team's going to finish, and basically my preseason divisional winners and predictions. I'm not going to go into the whole playoff spiel or anything like that. I'll do that in a couple months when we're closer to the NFL preseason and the Hall of Fame game. But right now we're going to jump into the AFC East. I really do think that the Buffalo Bills are going to still finish first in the league. I do think they're going to finish first in the division. As long as they got Josh Allen, I will always consider them a threat. The fact is that they got Keon Coleman in the draft. I think that's their Stephon Diggs replacement. Now, I don't necessarily think Keon Coleman's going to be a Stephon Diggs, but he's still solid nonetheless. 9 times out of 10, if you have the best quarterback in your division, you're winning the division. So as long as they got Josh Allen and he's healthy and he's ready to go, I'll take Buffalo to finish first. I'll take the Dolphins to finish second. They're going to be battling for first, especially after just adding Odell Beckham Jr. Adding Odell Beckham to that already loaded offense tells me one thing. This is do or die for Tua. This has to be the year he finally pops, and I think it's conference. For Miami's sake, they probably have to make a conference championship. For Tua's sake, I should say. If Tua wants to remain a Miami Dolphin for years to come and remain their guy, honestly, I think he has to at least get to the conference championship this year if he wants any hope of being re-signed or anything like that. So third in the division, I'm going to take New England. New England, they had the most anti-Belichick draft I've ever seen. They had the most anti-Bill Belichick draft this year. It's so funny. It was like a big middle finger to Bill Belichick. They drafted only one defensive player. The rest of their picks were offense. And they got Drake May at quarterback. So the fact of the matter is I would flip-flop between them and the Jets. I really have been. I don't know. I think you can change the Jets and the Patriots positions, but I'm going to put New England at 3 because I think they're a better run organization than the Jets. Obviously, the Jets last. Aaron Rodgers is out of his prime. That offensive line, they addressed it in the draft, but it's still going to need work. It's still going to take time for all these players to mesh well together. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, back 9 of his career, he's pretty much done. Their offense is pretty good, but I do question health for a lot of these players. So AFC East order, Buffalo, Miami, New England, New York. All right, let's move on to the AFC North, probably the toughest division in all of football. Not probably, most definitely is. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens to finish first again. Lamar Jackson still healthy and one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, I know they lost a little bit of production on the defense, but they added Derrick Henry to an already loaded offense. You still bring back Zay Flowers, who's primed and ready, honestly, for a breakout year. A loaded offense, still a star-studded defense. I think Baltimore, yet again, wins the division, but I don't think it's by much. I have flip-flopped with Ravens, and number 2 in the league division, I think, is going to be Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had probably the best offseason out of any team in the NFL, really, upgrading pretty much at every major position that they needed addressed. Offensive line, wide receiver, quarterback especially, linebacker, cornerback. Pittsburgh honestly had such a terrific offseason. I think that I flip-flop between them, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Whoever it is under center, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Like I said in last week's episode, they addressed offensive line heavily in this draft, which they should have done from the get-go, and I appreciated that, the fact that they actually did that. They actually went heavy on offensive line, so I do think Pittsburgh finishes second. Cincinnati this whole division is going to be a dogfight as to who wins it. I think it's possible that 3 or even all 4 of these teams could make the playoffs in the AFC next year, but for right now, third, I'll have Cincinnati. As long as you got Joe Burrow and as long as he's healthy, the Bengals always have a chance to make the playoffs. I am worried about their offensive line still, and I am worried about their defense, especially I believe it's Ted Hendricks. I forget their defensive end situation. So Cincinnati at 3, and then obviously Cleveland at 4. They do get Nick Chubb back. They still have a great offensive line. They still have a solid defense, even though they lost a lot of productivity. And then they got Watson at quarterback. I don't know what to make of him. He hasn't really shown anything remotely close to the potential that he showed when he was at Houston his first couple years in the league, but that's my AFC North prediction. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and then Cleveland. Honestly, this division is the best in football, and it wouldn't shock me one bit to see any of these teams, probably all 4 teams, make the playoffs next year in the AFC. All right, let's move on to the AFC South. Houston Texans finished first by a mile. CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, the amount of offense this team has. When it comes to player personnel, no team has done it as good as Houston has done it over the past 2 years. They've just been amazing. They're making tremendous strides. CJ Stroud at quarterback, I think he takes his next leap. I think, personally, he's going to be an MVP candidate this upcoming year in his second year as a starter. So Houston, by a landslide, they're going to win the division. A little bit of a shock, the Indianapolis Colts. I love the Colts. I really think they're primed and ready to make another jump this year. They had a really good draft. I love their pick of Donnie Mitchell from Texas, adding another weapon for Anthony Richardson. If he stays healthy, Anthony Richardson is going to pop this year. Mark my words. Today's the date. Mark today's date. It is May 6th, 2024. Anthony Richardson is going to pop and become the next star quarterback in the entire NFL. Indianapolis is going to finish second. They still need a little work, especially on the defensive side of the football, and also regarding health, any health factors, this is all taking health out of the equation. Obviously, that's a big deal for every single team, but I'll take Indianapolis to finish second. I'll take Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence to finish third. I do think they take another step back this year. I think they've gotten really, really stagnant ever since Trevor Lawrence's loss in the wild card against the Chargers. Win against the Chargers in the playoffs a couple years ago, but I expected them to take a big leap last year. They took a huge nosedive towards the back end of the season, so I'm going to take Jacksonville to finish third, and then Tennessee Titans finishing last in the AFC South. This offensive line, like I stated, is the worst in football. It's a complete turnstile at the offensive line position. No more Derrick Henry. Is Will Levis the guy? Well, I know they addressed offensive line in the draft, which they needed. If Will Levis is to succeed, he can't end up on his ass every other play, so it's important that they addressed it right then and there. But I do not see Tennessee making really much strides this year, so I think they finished last in the AFC South. All right, final division in the AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs, enough said. Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid. Doesn't matter who their weapons are. Doesn't matter. Whoever they got on that roster, they're always viable. And honestly, until someone stops them, until someone dethrones them, I'm going to pick Kansas City to win the West in the AFC, as always. I'm going to take the Chargers to finish second. Jim Harbaugh. Sorry. The fact that Jim Harbaugh is now head coach of the Chargers, he's going to turn that organization around from the absolute mess it was with Brandon Staley. I don't think you can get worse at a head coaching job when it comes to Brandon Staley. That was pretty bad. Maybe Freddie Kitchens from Cleveland a couple years ago, but that's neither here nor there. But Jim Harbaugh leading the Chargers, I believe they'll finish second in the division. I like the Raiders. I really like the Raiders roster. There's not too many holes, but again, the quarterback situation is questioning. If they get a quarterback, they would definitely compete for the division. But I'll take the Las Vegas Raiders to finish third. And then Denver, they got Bo Nix, so they got their quarterback, I believe. Like I said before, I think Bo Nix was the most NFL-ready quarterback with all those career starts in college. I think he's primed and ready to be a star in this NFL landscape. But obviously, first year, new quarterback, new system. Sean Payton has to get him used to the NFL landscape, honestly, and I think they still need to upgrade a little bit overall on roster. So I think it's going to be another pullback year for Denver. Not necessarily terrible, but again, Kansas City and LA ahead of them. I don't see them making any moves that necessarily propel them to the playoffs or anything like that. So fourth in the division in the AFC West, I have the Denver Broncos finishing last. All right, so let's move on to the NFC. We're going to talk about the NFC East. Micah Parsons thinking this is the best division in football. Give me a fucking break, please. So, Philadelphia Eagles are going to finish first. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, a loaded offensive line, a reloaded secondary, a good-ass front seven. I don't see many holes with Philadelphia. Coordinators were an issue last year. I don't think they'll be the same issues this year. I think Philly, in a landslide, wins the NFC East. Second, as much as I don't like their player personnel, I'm going to go with Dallas just because the other two teams stink so much. But I'm going to go with Dallas to finish second. Dak Prescott has to show out this year if he wants any hope at getting re-signed with Dallas. Pretty sure recently that there was some joke going around that he said he couldn't afford to fee his family. I don't even know. I'll have to find that video. Maybe I'll talk about it next week. But Dallas, terrible running back room. Only got one dependable receiver. Everyone else is hot and cold and butterfingers for days. Only good defensive pieces is Micah Parsons. Obviously, you got Deron Bland and Diggs comes back. So you got an okay secondary. But the problem is, I think they're going to be too reliant on Dak Prescott this year. You just signed Zeke Elliott for another year. Okay, that's not really going to do much. Zeke Elliott is way out of his prime. He's nowhere near the running back he used to be when he first came in the league with Dak Prescott. So I think Dallas, while I don't like their roster that much, I will pick them to finish second. Washington, they drafted the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, so that's an instant upgrade from Sam Howell, so I'll pick them to finish third in the division. And the Giants just absolutely suck. They stink. They're a dumpster fire. They're awful. They're going to finish fourth, and they might end up being slated for getting the first overall pick in next year's draft of how bad they're going to be this year. So Daniel Jones, if he wants to salvage anything out of his career, he's got to pull his head out of his ass. He's got to turn into a completely different quarterback, and I think that's why they drafted Malik Neighbors, to either give him another weapon to finally show out that he's able to be that guy again, especially after they gave him all that money in the first place, which I disagree with. One of the worst contracts in football. But getting Malik Neighbors, I think, will add a little bit more firepower to this offense because it's basically a BB gun. So they're upgrading a little bit. That's not hard to do when you got nothing. So drafting Malik Neighbors made sense in my opinion. But I think the New York Giants still finished last in the division. That organization has just been a shit show since Tom Coughlin left years and years ago. Yeah, New York Giants, they're going to finish fourth in the East. NFC North. Yet again, I will take Detroit because outside of San Francisco, I think they have the best roster in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, Amon-Ra St. Brown extended, John Mechie, at wide receiver. I forget who their tight end is. How am I forgetting this? Either way, Detroit, absolutely stacked. I think Jared Goff is such a good quarterback, has been one of the most underrated quarterbacks for the better part of his entire career. I think Detroit wins the North again, reloading on the secondary. The biggest issue for Detroit last year was what? Their secondary. Burnt toast all the way around. They addressed it again in the draft. I think, yet again, other than San Francisco, the Detroit Lions have the best roster in the NFL. And while it's going to be a dogfight, I think they'll win the NFC North. Finishing second is the Green Bay Packers. Yet again, another team that just drafts so well, drafts as well as anybody in the entire league. I think Jordan Love makes another step forward into becoming the next great Green Bay Packers quarterback, like Favre was, like Aaron Rodgers was, now to Jordan Love. I think it'll be close. I think they'll still make the playoffs. I don't necessarily it's going to flip-flop between Green Bay and Detroit a while. Those two at the top of the division, but I think Green Bay right now, as roster stands, I think they're finished second. I will take the Chicago Bears out on a limb as they are going to be the most improved team from last year. They were absolutely garbage last year. So much turmoil with Justin Fields. The team in general, offense was atrocious. But now you got Caleb Williams. You got Rome Odunze. You got Deontay Swift. You got Keenan Allen. You got a solid tight end. You got a solid offensive line. And the Bears defense is always good. It's time to put up or shut up. I think this is the year that Chicago finally does some good. Obviously, they have a ways to go before they're a viable contender for anything. So I'll put them at third in the division. Now, Minnesota is going to be probably the best fourth-place team in the entire NFL. Their roster is absolutely stacked, and now they bring in J.J. McCarthy, who I thought landed in the absolute perfect spot to succeed in the entire NFL. I thought he was going to be a bust if he landed anywhere other than Minnesota. But Minnesota, they have the offensive line, they have the weapons, they have the defense to complement the offense. I honestly think the Minnesota Vikings, I think they're going to finish last in the NFC North, but I think they'll be the best fourth-place team in the entire NFL. NFC South. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons to win the division. Now, this is very early on, but obviously Michael Penix drafted. Even though they signed Kirk Cousins to millions of dollars, I do think Atlanta, they don't really have too many holes, even though I really think they should have drafted Dallas Turner to shore up the pass rush for this team. But Atlanta really doesn't have that many holes, so I'm going to take Atlanta to finish first in the NFC South, followed by Tampa Bay, because Buccaneers roster really hasn't changed much. Baker Mayfield's still going to do his thing. I think Tampa Bay will be fine. The Carolina Panthers are going to make another jump this year. I think they'll be a lot better than they were last year. I think they're actually giving, Bryce Young a chance to succeed now. So while they're not going to do anything otherworldly, they're still going to miss the playoffs. But I do think they take a step in the right direction. They only won 2 games last year. I think they at least double that and probably win a little bit more. But I think they'll finish third in the division. And then finally in the NFC South, finishing fourth is the New Orleans Saints. I don't know what the hell is going on with that organization. They're in a weird spot. I don't know. I really don't see any good coming out of that team this year. I think New Orleans, while they went 9-8 last year, but they're going to take a big step back. This team, I don't really have any hope for, so I think they finish last to round out the NFC South. And the final division, NFC West. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams to finish first. Matt Stafford coming back healthy, an okay offensive line, pretty good offensive line. Cooper Kupp coming back healthy. Puka Nacua, a solid defense. No Aaron Donald, but that wasn't going to last forever. All great players retire at some point. We saw that with Brady. We saw that with just so many great players over the past decade and everything like that. Players come, players go. That's just the reality of football. That's just the reality of any sport that we all love. But I do think the Rams, primed and loaded, really shored up the secondary. I love that draft pick for Cameron Kitchens from Miami. I think that he can really shine in the secondary. I think the Los Angeles Rams shock a lot of people. I think they overtake San Francisco for the West. And then followed by San Francisco. Like I said, I think they have the best roster in the NFL. I'm just taking quarterbacks, basically. Who's the best quarterback in the division? 99% of the time, the winner of the division has the best quarterback in said division. So I just still don't know how I feel about Brock Purdy. I think he's definitely better than a lot of people advertise, but I don't necessarily know if he's that big of a game changer. So I'm going to take the Rams first. San Francisco is going to finish second. I'll take Seattle to finish third, and then Arizona to finish fourth. Those two you can really flip-flop, but I think Marvin Harrison going to Arizona is going to move mountains for Arizona, especially for Kyler Murray, having someone new to throw to. But I really do believe that you can really switch it between Seattle and Arizona. So I'll pick Seattle to finish third, and I'll take Arizona. As of right now, I know it's very early to finish last in the division. So to recap my NFL division winners, in my opinion, AFC East, Buffalo, AFC North, Baltimore, AFC South, Houston, AFC West, Kansas City. I don't necessarily think there's much debate there. Now in the NFC East, Philly, NFC North, Detroit, NFC South, Atlanta, and then NFC West, Los Angeles. Very early on, this is a very early on rough estimation on who's going to win and who's going to be in the division, who's going to represent the division in the playoffs in each and every single one of those cases. So we'll eventually find out later this year, but it was fun to really watch the NFL draft and just see all those great picks. This was such a great draft, and I think a lot of teams are going to push themselves into the national spotlight when it comes to pursuing a Super Bowl championship. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. I really appreciate you making me a part of your day again. I know this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. Next week, that will be the big topic for our episode, as I feel I can lend a helping hand in a lot of that stuff that we deal with. But be prepared for next week. It might be even a little bit of a tearjerker, but that's what I'm here for. As much as I've transitioned into a sports talk show, I will never deny anyone help who may need advice, who deals with mental health or anything like that. God has been personally working miracles in my life recently, even though I've been knocked to my knees a little bit by life in general over the past couple of weeks. But the reality is that God is working wonders in my life. And, I'm very blessed that Jesus Christ is working in my favor, really putting him in my heart and really leaning on him to get me through all the tough times and, just propel me forward in life in general. So next week, since it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to be dedicating that show entirely to that. I'll be talking about various circumstances and various situations that you could be dealing with or put in. And honestly, I'm going to be recommending ways on how to handle those and really how to handle a lot of situations that Gen Z in general tend to deal with nowadays. It's a very specific topic that's close and near and dear to my heart, so it hits home a little bit. It's going to be a tough listen. Maybe some hard truths will come out of it, but I think when it comes to struggle with anything, hard truths are necessary to come to healthy realizations that you may need. So that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Like I said, be sure to stay tuned for next week. But again, I'm very blessed, beyond grateful to keep doing this. We're still growing, guys. We're almost at 150 subscribers, so keep hitting that bell for notifications. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Leko. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working